Excellencies, honored guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my really great honor and extreme privilege to welcome high-level Armenian delegation at the University of Latvia, which which is the citadel of knowledge, research, innovation in Latvia. And when I say privilege, I'm really frank to you, as within my long academia and politician's career in the position of the Minister of Education and Science, internationalization of higher education institutions, partnership and networking of faculty and researchers, close relationship and sincere friendship has always been a strong priority, regardless position or title on the business card. So let me tell you, and these are not only words, this is really in reality truth, and let me tell you a short so to say, experience that in summer 2007, together with my colleagues, Professor Raubergers, at least the European Union knows him very well, and Dr. Karine Organization, who also has the privilege to be here, we organized and convened international summer school in Armenia for rectors and vice-rectors of higher education institutions, how to implement the decisions of Bologna process. And it was really a great success and high acknowledgement on the host side. I'm also extremely proud of the possibility on everyday basis to work together with Dr. Oganessiana, Armenian by origin, as you can feel, cosmopolitanian by orientation, and most caring and great patriot for the development of Latvia in her everyday activities. Besides, a year ago, Armenian educationalist delegation paid a visit to Latvia and exchanged experience both on school and higher education practice, and I strongly believe that these contacts are in progress both in content and in forms also today. And from the bottom of my heart, I wish and I'm prepared to work on widening the possibilities of cooperation between Armenia and Latvia, especially for young people, young researchers, students and scientists. And I'm happy that today I have the possibility to announce that the faculty which I represent nowadays, the Faculty of Education, Psychology and Arts, has created an innovative master degree program for faculty members and adult educators under the name Lifelong Learning for Professional Sustainability, and which will be implemented on virtual platform, which means no travel costs, no borders, and it can be very open to the participants. And by the end of this roundtable discussion, I would be very grateful if you could provide me the name of the contact person with whom we may be in touch and working on this program, and on master program. And let me end my short welcoming speech by quoting Albert Einstein, that the significant problems we face, and definitely we all face problems of bigger or smaller significance, cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were when we created those problems. And these words served as inspiration for the above-mentioned program for adult educators and faculty members, and let me express deepest conviction that they can also invigorate Latvian and Armenian cooperation as well. So, wishing a very, very productive and fruitful roundtable discussion, I would be more than honored to pass the floor to the researcher of the Jean Monnet Center of Excellence, Romans Putans, to read the welcome address of Professor Tatiana Mushavska.
Yes. Your Excellencies, colleagues, dear friends, I feel honored to have the opportunity to welcome you to this important event, a discussion on EU-Eastern Partnership cooperation with focus on Armenia. It is a particular pleasure for me to welcome you to discuss a topic which is on the agenda of the EU-Armenia relations. This is cooperation between academia in Armenia and the EU, within the framework of the long-standing historical, cultural, and economic links between the European Union, member states, and Armenia in particular. Latvia and Armenia share common values, democracy, human rights, and rule of law that strengthen the two societies and their approaches to a common future. The discussion here in Riga at the University of Latvia is aimed at sharing experiences with regards to the partnership between Armenia and the EU, and in particular Armenia and Latvia. The partnership promotes democracy and good governance, sector reform and environment protection, strengthens security and encourages people-to-people contacts, supports economic and social development, and offers additional funding for the projects to reduce socio-economic imbalances and increase stability. We support the decision made by people in Armenia to keep European integration at the top of the national agenda, and believe that we are now at the crucial moment to discuss and develop our cooperation potential in the area of teaching and research. We can open a new chapter in our cooperation, a cooperation between colleagues that share the same passion for European integration. I trust we will build our partnership on existing achievements and further accelerate our cooperation exchange of success examples and difficulties in research, teaching and promotion of common values, in particular in the key areas of rule of law, fundamental rights, and economic prosperity. The Jean Monnet program, funded by the European Commission, plays a very important role in this process. This program helps Jean Monnet chairs and centers of excellence to strengthen education and research in Europe and in the world. Let me now give you the perspective of the Jean Monnet program from Latvia as a small economy that belongs to the group of new EU member states. When Latvia expressed its wish to become a member of the European Union, the Jean Monnet program was of unique value in allowing Latvian scholars to begin a dialogue with their counterparts in different countries on common and fundamental issues for integration before accession to the EU. Now, Latvia has developed strong traditions in research and education in European integration with focus on bachelor, master, and doctoral studies. The researchers at the University of Latvia since year 2000 are engaged in multidisciplinary research and teaching on European issues such as economics, politics, science, political science, law, public administration, and regional issues. We work closely with Jean Monnet and EU Centers of Excellence in the United Kingdom, Finland, Germany, and Canada. We host Jean Monnet projects on European integration, migration, social dialogue, and civil society. The Jean Monnet Center of Excellence is a forum for debate on Europe from the perspective of a new member state. It attracts young researchers, shares experiences on EU enlargement and neighborhood policy. By geography, EU membership and regional anchoring provides a natural bridge between EU and its ring of friends. We are interested to learn from everyone's perspective regarding cooperation trends within the partnership. I would like to underline that our aim is strengthening interdisciplinary research and teaching on European studies, building a cooperative network of those involved in this process, and sharing EU values and contents with Eastern Partnership counterparts in general, and with Armenia in particular. The wide consensus existing in Armenia that involves academia, policymakers, business community, and civil society on European integration and the reforms that come within it are a crucial asset for the success in our cooperation. I am very, very positive that this refreshing discussion can provide us not only with new innovative ideas, but also with a better understanding of what binds us together and where the problems are and how we can address them. So I wish to all of us success and enjoyable and fruitful discussion. Thank you. Tatiana Mushavska, Director of Jean Monnet Center of Excellence at the University of Latvia.
Thank you, Mr. Putas. Thank you, Professor Mushavska, for such a content-filled and welcoming address. and it's my honor to give the floor to His Excellency Armēnija, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Armenia. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, distinguished professors, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a privilege to be here in Latvian University in the center of Jean Monnet. And first of all, I would like to express our appreciation and gratitude for organizing this roundtable discussion on Armenia and Armenian-Latvian bilateral relations and Armenian strategic views on ongoing processes in the world and in our immediate neighborhood. And of course, being in the citadel of knowledge, of course, brings me back to my memories of a little bit more than a quarter century ago, when I myself was a student. And at that time, of course, all of us were dreaming and cherishing the idea of our own statehood. But even at that time, in our wildest dreams, we wouldn't dare to think about that in a few years. We Armenians, Latvians, others will eventually see the dream to come true. And since then, it was really past some 22 years, almost 22 years, and it's been very interesting period, historic period of evolution, revolution, transformation. We were engaged in a very long and winding road of nation building, state building. In your part of the world, I guess you were much more successful in a brief period of independence or regaining independence. Latvia became a member of NATO, of the European Union, active member of the European Union. In our part of the world, the geopolitical reality is somewhat complex, and still for us it's the first challenge is to preserve this state that Armenians were cherishing for almost 600 years since the last statehood we had in the 14th century. And again, we still have all nations have a long way to go. We are in the beginning of the road, and of course we will face a lot of challenges, a lot of threats. Any nation has challenges and threats, and I guess the nature of the challenges are the same. The difference is how each nation sees the threats and the way how to overcome them. And in dealing with those challenges, I guess here where the historical experience, roots, the way of perceiving the world, mentality, culture, inward value system is dominant, how a nation is going through these problems. And in this sense, I believe that small nations, especially those who have the same historic roots, the same value system, the same historical experience and memory, I guess this is what unites us. We used to be some time ago part of one state. We had, before establishing our own status, very strong, solid ties of friendship. And nowadays, 22 years after the independence, it's a really pleasant and also responsible mission for me to be ambassador of independent Armenia to independent Latvia, and to continue to build up our relations based on traditional, very warm and strong ties between our nations. And to be very brief, of course we do not start from the scratch. We've been quite successful in establishing very good and dynamic political dialogue, and I would like to stress that within the last years this context have tendency of incremental dynamism. Today we had very productive conversations with our colleagues, the foreign ministry, and we passed through all areas of our cooperation, and we are looking very much forward in a very busy agenda for the coming years. Just to mention, this year we have important visits which are somehow connected with interparliamentary cooperation, with our economic cooperation, other areas. But today we also touched upon the area that you were touching upon, and this is the area where our small nations are comparative advantage. This is the area of knowledge, this area of science, of culture, and I guess that in a very short period of time we will be able to give you some solid ground and fertile ground for expanding formal cooperation and upgrade it to new levels. And of course, nowadays the whole system, logics of international relations have been transformed. And it's no more a domain of only politicians and diplomats. New actors are playing a significant role in building interstate relations. And it's both brings advantages and disadvantages. In this case, I think it's advantage that new actors are helping us to bring our nations even more. But again, diplomats, embassies are playing some role, and I'm very happy here to state that our embassies in Vilnius, which is a regional embassy, and Latvian mission and embassy in Austria, which is also concurrently covering Armenia, we established really very fruitful and pleasant dialogue and personal contacts. And having said that, I would once again would like to thank you and give the floor to my colleague. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. It is a great privilege of being in this hall, seated next to my former professor, who taught me a few courses some 25 years ago. But in order to save time, I would avoid niceties and better focus on Latvian-Armenian relations to describe the dynamism of our dialogue and cooperation. And here I would like to say that indeed our political dialogue is developing very smoothly. We have had in a few years several presidential visits, exchange of presidential visits on both sides. We also had successful dialogue at the level of the presidents of the parliaments of both countries. Then, of course, ministerial visits did happen. And now, today, we are welcoming to Riga for political consultations one of the principal deputies of Armenian foreign minister for consultations specifically on European issues. In the foreign ministry, we had extensive consultations during this day, and we discovered that, of course, we did focus on the European framework of our relations. Because, for sure, for the coming decade or several decades, the European framework will be the main context of our relations, be these political, economic or cultural relations. I must observe, of course, that the past contacts which existed under Soviet rule were quite intensive. Latvia and Armenia had many points in common. We had closer economic relations, also much closer cooperation in education and science and in culture. Over the last 20 years, these contacts have become slightly weaker. I must admit that, of course, we did not use the full potential of our cooperation in education, in economy, in culture, and now we should embark on filling this gap by using European opportunities and frameworks, because one cannot ignore the geographical distance that separates Latvia and Armenia. So the European framework, European programs, surely provide a good opportunity for our cooperation. And we must make full use of these, in addition to bilateral schemes and bilateral agreements on which we are working. I would like to invite all educational institutions, including, of course, and above all, the University of Latvia, to establish closer ties to institutions in Armenia. I know our neighboring countries are already making huge steps in this field, so I think Latvia should follow the example of Lithuania and, of course, not only conclude a bilateral agreement on cooperation in education, but also fill this agreement with concrete cooperation between institutions and also grassroots level between students and academicians, including research centers on both sides. However, this in turn must create also conditions for closer economic cooperation. At the present moment, I must say, the trade between Latvia and Armenia is almost miserable. We are talking of a few million of lots on both sides, and they would not hide that 50% of the trade turnover is Armenian Kani. So, of course, I think there are many more things which we can trade between us, and there are, of course, huge opportunities for investment, also in production, both in Latvia and in Armenia. Armenia happens to be also a major investor. I must say last year Armenian enterprise invested 30 million euro in purchase and subsequent renovation of Hotel Riga. So, of course, Armenia is not a negligent actor in economic field, and we should also recognize the potential not only of Latvian economy but that of Armenian side as well. I think Latvia should therefore welcome and support Armenia's ambition to move forward in a very dynamic manner and conclude a deep and comprehensive free trade agreement with the European Union by the end of this year. Politically, we are of course supporting Armenia because we believe that this agreement, in combination with the association agreement, would create a stable basis for future development for our relations. And on this I would stop, and I think, of course, Armenian Deputy Minister Manas Kanyan would, of course, shed more light on this important subject. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Apvalsts and His Excellency. I was young, and above all, I would like to say thank you to Professor Kodi for such an inspirational opening remarks. We will now focus our roundtable debate on more detailed explanation and maybe projecting the future of our cooperation, and that's why I'm giving the floor to Mr. Zevar Natsa-Kanyan to details. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I have started a very exciting day in the morning in the consultations with my colleagues in the Ministry. Started the day with a meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Latvia, and I would say that terribly sorry we are a little bit late to this meeting, but it only demonstrates that we have too many things to do, to discuss. There are too many things we have in common, we have in our agenda. We could have gone on for a few more hours, and that also represents to me also as an indicator of the depth and the potential that our two countries have in their bilateral relations. And I was very moved, Professor Kruger, thank you very much for this arrangement and also for the words you have addressed and referred to in the context of the cooperation in the field of academia education. An area which has been traditionally an important domain of our activity, an important domain of our state building. Being here now at this moment is very much a sort of an intellectual challenge to test what we are doing, to test with the academia what we are doing, what is there that we might have paid more attention or less, and what the academia is seeing, assessing in our endeavor to develop a nation, to develop a nation state, to develop a country according to a certain set of values. And I also thank all the participants for your presence and interest. And when I see the young people in the room, and we mentioned, my colleague mentioned the very exciting time of independence, I always remember a very moving interview with one of the, or a survey in one of the Armenian newspapers on the occasion of the 12th anniversary of Armenia's independence. And they went out to the streets and spoke to 12-year-old children in the street. And they asked, what is it today? Everyone obviously said it is the Independence Day of Armenia. And they said, and then what do you know what happened 12 years ago? And the answer was very moving. They said, "Oh, it was a long time ago, we don't know, ask our parents." And so far as you mentioned the education area cooperation, I should say that yes, indeed, the Bologna process is one very important framework. We are preparing for our contribution to the Bologna process and the chairmanship of the process in 2015. Our Minister of Education, Mr. Austrumu, has been very, very engaging in this. I think we're the first one in the member state who's going to be in the chair for the first time as a non-EU member state. And of course it's one hell of a responsibility. And of course it is also an opportunity, an instrument for us to consolidate the education system, the reform of the education, which has very deep-rooted foundations, to reform it to the new requirements, to the new standards. I have personally already benefited from the Bologna process. My children, as children of diplomatic family as it is, have the perpetual challenge of accommodating themselves to new environments. And when they moved to Armenia, they were exactly at the age of studentship, and they started their student years not in Armenia, but when they moved to Armenia, they had very little problems with engagement or incorporation into Armenian education system, not least, most of it due to the operation of the Bologna system, which makes the system very much recognizable across the board in Europe. Those are a few introductory remarks that I wanted to share with you, and to thank you once again, and perhaps now to move to the specific question we have at hand that we want to tackle around the table, which is about Armenia's EU Eastern Partnership, Armenia's engagement in the relations with the European Union. Well, I thought the way in which I would tackle this perhaps is to outline a few fundamentals, some sort of philosophy behind what we are doing. The way in which we think, what the EU policy means for us in its broad, rather intangible terms, foundational terms. And then through the question and answer, perhaps I would have the opportunity also to tackle the issues of how we translate this into tangible, practical arrangements, and what is our specific agenda today with the European Union. And therefore, I would start with just helping us to sort of square and picture Armenia in the world, in the European map, and therefore some comparisons might help, and that we are first of all in size as big as Belgium, and in population we are as numerous as our neighbors Lithuania. There is a caveat to this last point, the fact that we have twice as many Armenians living abroad is a cruel and bitter irony of history. We have a genetic sense of acute security consciousness. We fast forward to our present times, we are a restored statehood, a nation state, and a member of the international community. We have arrived at this juncture of our history with a very heavy baggage of our collective memory and also collective vision for the future. Idealists we were in our aspirations for a country with secured freedoms, immediate prosperity to be delivered in a single package with independence. However, a cocktail of circumstances defined the rationale of Armenia's state building since 1991, with ingredients as opposite as an unequivocal public urge for a democratic society with a market economy, legacies of the Soviet past, and absence of institutions to deliver on immediately on these urges, injustices of history, and cynical fundamental threats to basic physical security, to name the few ingredients with which we started our independence. Now, I mentioned Belgium and Lithuania in my comparisons for size and population. Well, so far as the conditions for the two fundamental objectives of prosperity and security are concerned, the differences are striking. Like Belgium and Lithuania, we do not rely on natural resources, as we just came to happen. Like the two above, we rely on individual initiative and private entrepreneurship. Such national rationale necessitates specific institutional arrangements of the state which rely on individual economic and political freedoms. It necessitates the embrace of a respective value system. Values, therefore, is the key word. As a truly small nation, we rely on integrations and interactions with the outer world. Unlike the two states, Belgium and Lithuania would define geography and would define Europe first as a community of values. Our place in Europe is therefore defined ultimately in terms of shared values. And the practical policy implications of such a vision are reflected primarily in the European dimension of our foreign policy. The European Union, of which we are not members, unlike the two states above, and we will see the implications, has been and remains a key partner for us. Our agenda with the European Union reflects a fusion of our national objective and domestic policy of institutional development according to a specific set of values and the available foreign policy instruments. In short, the European dimension of our foreign policy is effectively a part of our domestic reform agenda. I often quote the way in which President Sarkozy put it in one of his addresses a few years ago to demonstrate in rather graphic terms this policy objective. He said that everything we have in this country, whether it is a shop window sign, a traffic sign, the judiciary system, or anything in between, we want to have it according to the European Union standard. This is effectively the essence of our present agenda with the European Union. It is dominated by the negotiations for the present time for a new association agreement and a deep and comprehensive free trade area. We have a very dynamic high-level political dialogue with the European Union. We have just concluded the agreement for visa liberalization, agreements for visa liberalization and readmission, which are aimed at increased human contacts, including students and academia, and these are specific groups in the agreement that we have negotiated with our friends in the European Union. The EU is consistent assistant to Armenia's reform agenda. The association agreement and the DCFTA are indeed critical tools to materialize the notion of incorporation of the European norms into our national system. We are negotiating not just a body of text for a basic cooperation, but rather terms and timing for incorporation of the European Union acquis in Armenia. My job, in fact, I tend to believe is easy because there exists a broad public consensus in Armenia about the objectives we pursue throughout the whole spectrum of Armenian agenda. There are 6 political parties represented in the parliament of Armenia today, and they have divergent views on practically everything, but none of them has been running for seats on a ticket which would contradict our European aspirations or the model we built in Armenia. Over the past 20 years, despite deficiencies, despite mistakes and challenges, and of course, I admit that we had quite a few of them, we have been modeling our state within this value system we share. The basic message, therefore, is we are the same. We are the same community of shared values.
Thank you so much, Deputy Minister for the girls. I appreciate a lot your contribution here. And I would like to ask the other two distinguished panelists to focus and your presentation probably in 10 minutes, if you could agree, so to let our discussion go on probably those questions later. So, Ambassador Mažēkas, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, and I hope I will make it in less than 10 minutes. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Minister, for this pretext for bringing Armenia into the focus also of Latvian academia, because it is always useful to remind also ourselves of what are our neighbors and why we have a particular interest in them. And so perhaps I would focus on why we as a country are interested in the development of Eastern Partnership as European policy, and also in the success of Armenia within the Eastern Partnership. First of all, I would recall that largely Eastern Partnership is a product of European enlargement. Because if you look at the timeline, this concept emerged roughly 5 years ago, which happened to be after the last round of enlargement of the European Union, when a large number of countries with particular historical experience joined, and with their own neighborhood getting European neighborhood further to the east. And of course, we as a country have particular interests in the region for a number of reasons. One is the historical, be it sentimental value or even a feeling of historical responsibility for being in a solidarity with countries with whom we have had common historical experience. And as you already mentioned, the values, because with many of the countries it is very clear that we have a common set of values. I mean, it's not very difficult to associate oneself with a country which is the oldest Christian country in the world, which in this case is Armenia, which is one of the embodiment of the common values, although the Christianity is not per se a value of the European Union, but it is nevertheless somewhere in our historical background. Second is our economic interests, because this is a region with which we have historically had strong economic ties, and which we would like to explore more in the future. And finally, where it is a region where we have security interests, because stable development in the regions which are either neighboring on us or are close to us means also increased security for us. And for these reasons, in the formulation and development of Eastern Partnership, the Latvian voice has been always present and has been also heard. For instance, there have been recent developments in the conceptual framework of the Eastern Partnership, namely the more for more principle, which is one of the principles that Latvia advocated, which means that those countries that are willing and ready to take more from the partnership with European Union do get additional resources, not because they would simply have some needs of their population, but because they are ready and willing to absorb more. And second concept which we were also advocating, and of course we were not the only ones, we were among friends in our immediate region, is the concept of transition experience, which we also successfully managed to get into the thinking and into the documents of the European Union, which means that the experience of the newer members of the European Union has particular significance for those countries to the east, and that this is a factor that should be taken into account also in the planning of different projects. And getting to Armenia, we are glad for Armenia's progress, and I would even say rapid progress. And I think that this is a case in point that development of a country's relationship with the European Union is realistically in the hands of the country itself. I was trying to remember a single instance where the relationship between European Union and a country of Eastern Partnership would have been derailed because of the European Union alone. And I couldn't really remember such case. Always has been either a good reason or a very good pretext. Whenever the countries have not given such pretexts, the relationship has been advancing steadily, and we are therefore very much encouraged by the progress Armenia has been making in the negotiations on association agreement and the DCFTA, especially in the course of the past year. Of course, there is always space for improvement in relationship, but then it is already really a two-way street. So I would also encourage our own Latvian institutions and companies and state institutions to take opportunities that do present themselves. I'm thinking of such mechanisms as twinning, because clearly Armenia cannot take Latvian projects if Latvians do not submit such projects. Or the other possibilities, of course, are in the academic field, because there are possibilities for different scholarships also in our country. So I think that is one area where there can be more development. And also I see that there are issues where we can learn from Armenia. I am thinking in particular on one area which you already referred to, which is the fact that Armenia has a large diaspora. And I know that Armenia is working very effectively and very efficiently with this diaspora, and currently it has also become one of the foreign policy priorities of the Latvian government to work with our diasporas, also to think both how to preserve their link with Latvia, how to help them preserve the Latvian language, and how to get them involved economically with Latvia. So I think that there can be also things that we as a country can learn. And finally, I think that we should recall also the timeline, that this year is, in the second half of the year, it is a year of Lithuanian presidency in the European Union with a very important Vilnius summit. So we hope that the Eastern Partnership countries, including Armenia, will advance significantly their relationship with the EU by the summit, and to indicate that we plan to have, after the Vilnius summit, to have the Riga summit in 2 years' time during our EU presidency, for which, of course, we hope to see even more progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Mužeiks. I would like only to add something really with remuneration politics, because Latvia now is, Latvian government is now focusing not only on diaspora politics, but also how to get those Latvians living in different European countries back. So your experience with working with diaspora, it seems really valuable for us trying to implement our new actually policies. So, but luckily, so we have Latvian Armenian sitting next to me, and besides she's Dr. Karina Evasian, she's education scientist and leading researcher at University of Latvia, and Annette Forsters.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, professors, friends, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be here and to speak about such problems, and I'm a little bit even excited.
Yes.
So, but you see, in building successful cooperation between countries, they may face not only political challenges, but as well challenges of understanding each other's needs and expectations from this cooperation, and of course of grasping each other's mentality and spirits. I represent the Faculty of Education, Psychology and Arts of the University of Latvia. That is why I would like to bridge education in Armenia with education in Latvia. And based, of course, in some facts from my biography, as it is, I think it could be a kind of illustration of my thoughts and my conclusions which I made during this period of my life. I got my main education in Armenian. I finished physics, mathematics specialized school of a Yerevan State University. But to understand why in such a way, I must tell you a few words about what Armenians understand by education and what education means for the Armenian people. Armenian people understood very early in their history that they must be very educated to survive and to be strong. And this idea crystallized in the 4th century when Mesrop Mashkovs okay. Armenian okay. Yes, and created Armenian alphabet. And Armenian people started to create books. And when there were hard periods in life of Armenian people, they carried not only food for survival, they carried books. And they kept these books in Matanataran. You can see. Yes, and this is an important element because Armenian people created this Matanataran on the highest point of Yerevan. When you go to Yerevan, you must go to Matanataran and see the books which were saved by Armenian people. And each book there has its own history. Starting from tiny books with huge books, and people couldn't carry at once all the book, and they had to take apart the books, bury somewhere, and then take all together and to make a whole book. Why I'm saying all these things? Because be it in archetypes of Armenian people, it is hidden the huge strive for education and to be knowledgeable. And each Armenian family teaches his child in this way. And the philosophy of my family was the following. You are as much a personality as much you are educated. You are as much a personality as much you are open, understanding, and sharing. You are as much a personality as many languages you know. And based on this family philosophy, I did my best, and I finished that school with excellency, and I was commissioned to Moscow People's Friendship University. After that university, I was sent to India to work there also. There I met my Latvian husband, and I appeared here in Latvia. So, now I have been living here for 25 years. And all the time, of course, I have my ties with Armenia because my basics is Armenian. I will never forget it, and it is with me. But I can say that I found here some second homeland. If there, Armenia is my motherland, let us call Latvia to be my homeland. And what kind of opportunities I got here? Let us continue, compare what I got there in Armenia. I got there the ways of thinking, the drive for life, and purposefulness, and analogical thinking, creativity, and problem-solving skills, which helped me during all my life. But what I got here in Latvia, I discovered a new world. I got high professionalism of professors combined with democratic principles, tolerance, and it was a new world for me. And when sometimes Professor Koti doesn't know one thing, in one book, I called her like a fresh breeze from the ocean, because it was something new, very exciting. And when I had to just join master studies, because I had to, I'll be frank to you, I didn't plan anything of this type. But when I was there, during 1 month, I understood that I would like to continue. My parents were very much disappointed, because they thought that they had given me the best education in the world which could be. Of course they were right, but time changes, and the world changes, and new demands appear, and we have to go, not lag behind today's requirements, and so on and so on. So I have analyzed for myself, and what could be the common platform or cooperation of the Latvians and the Armenians. Your Excellency, Armēniju, you told my words in the very beginning. I was just surprised. How could you just get my words and tell the thoughts which I prepared for this talk? But okay, I will try to.
I was quoting you.
Yes, maybe. Thank you. But see, really, I thought about it and I understood. I would like to ask you one question. When you read history, you come across with nationalities who were just sometime, somewhere before, and they are not. There is no such thing. Imagine, Latvia is a small country. Armenia is not a huge country, a small country also, compared with China and other countries. But yet, having passed through all these experiences, there is Republic of Armenia, Republic of Latvia. What does it speak about? It speaks about our strength for survival, our purposefulness. We take care of our culture, language, and all the values which we created for this time. Now, speaking about opportunity, which could be interesting, I think both sides can be very interesting, attractive for each other. And both Armenia can be attractive for Latvian students, and Latvia can be very attractive for Armenian students. And for me, it was, I have gained a lot from this cooperation. Because what I got from Armenia, I could never get anywhere else. And what I got from Latvia, I couldn't get anywhere else either. So just to say that now we have a lot of programs, and the program which Professor Kote spoke about, it's an innovative product which we would like to offer as well to our partners in Armenia. It's a program, electronic studies, but we can also change, make it wider. But the main idea is how to educate adult and higher education teachers so they develop their professional competencies. And the program is planned, and prominent professors created different paths, and I'm very happy to be one of them. So I'm not only a consumer here in Latvia, I am a person who can product, and I have gained a lot from professors, and thank you very much. And I hope that, I do hope at least, that my companions also got some ideas also from me. And just to say that we are just in NET, we have created net of international research cooperation, and we are ambitious. We don't only want to import other people's ideas or countries' ideas. We want to become exporters of knowledge, research, and development projects. And as a symbolic ending of this, my very excited speech, which I couldn't even just expect from myself. It was discovery of my own self. I would like to show my book, which was released in Latvia in the beginning of this year. And this book is a very symbolic book for this today's round table. Because you see here on the book Armenian surname, Karine Oganisyana. And the book is written in Latvian, and I wrote it in Latvian myself. So, thank you very much, and for your patience. So it's on development of entrepreneurship. Yes, it's one only remark. My PhD was the development of students' enterprise and study process. And we developed a whole methodology how to develop entrepreneurship and study process, and it is now used also in Malaysia, because the National University of Malaysia just took our methodology, and now they will work in Malaysia with this methodology, and some elements are used in Wageningen. We have contacts Wageningen University, in Great Britain, Birmingham University. We have contacts with many countries, so it could be also an attractive element for our cooperation in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We are so proud and happy having you with us, and there's no wonder about structure of parallelism of structures between His Excellency and you, talking about the value of education. And so now, wrapping up our roundtable discussion, I would say we have approximately 8-10 minutes for questions and answers. And first, who could go first? So can I take approximately 3 questions? Comments, Romans, maybe you could start.
Yes, I can. Well, I'm here not only to represent the Chamonix Center of Excellence, which you already heard of, in welcoming remarks by the director of the center, Professor Moravsky, but I am also representing a European Studies Master Program at the University of Latvia, which is established under the Faculty of Economics and Management. And, well, being a faculty member at the program, a lecturer at the program, I am of course interested in expanding the program to a more international environment. And so I can briefly tell you about the program, and I would like to see in upcoming years more. The program itself is already very international. There is more than 50% of the students are not from Latvia. They are coming from all over the world, including from the countries of the Eastern Partnership as well. And it is one of the programs that might be interested, that is interested for foreign countries, since the subjects are taught in English. The program is called the European Studies Master Program. It is a 2 years master program with not only traditional lectures and seminars as we might be used to the traditional form of lecturing, but we have made the program, I'd say, interactive. Besides the lectures and seminars, we also have very many visiting guest lectures in all different kinds of fields. The main modules of the programs are political science, economic, and law, and social issues, including the regional ones. And during our program, we also have several events abroad. One of them is we have a very intense seminar in Brussels, when the students have the great opportunity to visit all the main EU institutions located in Brussels and also in Luxembourg. Then we have also a very good opportunity within the EU-Canada partnership program. Some students have this opportunity to go for a 3 weeks intensive seminar to Canada. And so these elements in our program are very they attract students from all over the world, as I mentioned. If you are interested, I might like to give you the program of our this year's study visit in Brussels. We had more than 40 lectures, 40 speakers in front of our students during the conference. And the students had this year, they had great opportunity to listen to the President of the Commission, Mr. Barroso's speech at the Chamonix Global Conference, which is a unique experience for students that are still learning what Europe is about. So, as for the questions, if you have any, I'd love to answer them about the Chamonix Center of Excellence at the University, as well as about the European Studies Master Program. And my question, it's not very specific, it's rather general, but it relates to, if I may, it relates to one of the interests of Professor Moravsky that she mentioned in her speech, that we would be interested to learn more about Derman's perspective regarding the cooperation trends within the partnership. If you have any comments on that they might be very useful for me to give remarks back to Professor, as well as to see how we can cooperate further. I know it's a wide question, but I'd appreciate any comments.
To react straight on?
Yeah.
Or take the questions perhaps?
Yeah, could you please, let's make it more better.
I guess we can establish a debate ongoing.
Yeah.
Okay. Very quickly, cooperation trends amongst the Eastern Partnership. Well, perhaps I would be very clear about it. There is a lot more to learn about how to do it. the Eastern Partnership, as we see it in Armenia, the Eastern Partnership is an important instrument of identity, because you in the European Union, a membership of 27 member states, you have neighbors to the east and you have neighbors to the south. We also understand that amongst the 27, the views towards the neighbors differ according to the proximity towards one dimension of a neighborhood or another. So far as we are concerned, we would dare to look at it in a way which says there is a certain difference. A certain difference because I spent a few minutes in my introductory remarks on one basic thing: shared values. We are the same. This is the message that we try to say. There is a difference between South and East. The East is, in terms of identity, is delivered in the matter which says values. Now, so far as the six are concerned, I have absolutely good understanding that there is no such consolidation among us about the insistence on values, and that is of course problematic. There are occasions or instances in which this is challenged straight within the Eastern Partnership. It is an open question. It is an open question which I believe is still a story.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And more comments, questions, reactions to recent.
One short and specific, if I may, but very specific now about the student exchange. Unfortunately, I'm not that I know of many Armenian students here at the University of Latvia. Probably not that many of Latvian students in Armenia. Probably there are some, but how do you see that evolving in the near years? How do you see the possibilities of that, and what would be the key interest that you would be interested in? Where to, which, I don't know, which areas of science would be the most attractive to you, and which ones do you think would be the best to promote among the Latvian students?
Well, look, I will tell you something. I wouldn't start speculating or fantasizing and saying things which require a bit more thinking and consultation with those who are dealing with it on a daily basis. But one thing I want to thank you. It was a very interesting meeting, very interesting and very practical 1.5 hours I spent here with you, for which I'm deeply thankful. Because I'm going out with a baggage of quite a few ideas and in fact proposals, offers on the table. It was very much a business meeting as it was an intellectual meeting, you know? And there was a very good mention about producing a product. It's not just about education as a specific area in which enlightenment is taking place, but also a place where products products of knowledge are produced. Yes, I'm very, very grateful for Dr. for her remarks and for reflecting on our academic strengths, on our, comparative advantages, and also on the importance of matching, going hand in hand with the contemporary trends and making education, step up to a level where it is competitive, right? We have the good background, we have the necessity and the work towards, competitiveness. And the Bologna process, believe me, is an extremely importantly helpful instrument. My answer to you is, this conversation may end in a few minutes, but it's not ending, I'm sure, because I'm carrying with me all those messages to Europe, with an insistence on our part to come back with reflections. I'm grateful to the very new proposal. In fact, we have basically a new component with Yanis, who are dealing with. Our job is to wrap up the human relations between two nations into one single package, which is called bilateral relations between two nations. You have given us a new ingredient with your offer. And I'm carrying this with me in Yerevan. I'm very keen. And also I would say, the concept of Jean Monnet Center of Excellence, the concept of Jean Monnet Initiative, and the way in which you have come to this stage, very interesting. The applicability of it is what you are offering us. Very good. Again, I'm mostly grateful. I have new important things which are shaping what we call our relations. So I'm very, very grateful. I didn't answer to your question.
No, you're actually...
Knowingly, I didn't answer to your question because I want those professionals to answer to your questions in a professional manner.
Yeah, you did answer it in that sense. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Putin.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just a very, very short remark. First of all, thank you very much for such an informed optimist attitude and view towards today's roundtable discussion. And I just wanted to add, speaking about the products, that definitely the diplomas of Latvia's higher education institutions are valid and valued at the European Union. And besides, Latvia has signed an agreement with China on the recognition of diplomas, meaning that in case Armenian students graduate institutions in Latvia, their diplomas are valid in China as well. So I think this is also a very, very huge asset which sometimes is neglected, but still we hope that we can work on extending this. Thank you really very much.
Thank you, Professor. And now I should wrap up this discussion with a short summary. And as a representative of the Ministry of Education and Science, I'm so happy about this shared emphasis on education and science and research cooperation. We don't have yet, but we have this bilateral agreement between Latvia and Armenia on cooperation in education and science. It's a process, so hopefully soon we will have one. Talking about students, statistics from 2012 shows 6 students, 1 in Riga Technical University, 3 in Reizekne Higher School, and 2 students in Baltic International Academy. What do we have? Thank you, Ambassador Mažēks, mentioning the possibilities of European Union project. We have Tempus now. Tempus, European Commission Tempus program exploited in terms of Riga Technical University cooperation with Obeli Institute of Physiology and Reizekne, our higher school cooperation with National Scientific Library and National Scientific Center. My colleagues in Ministry of Education are informing us. As well as we have frequent visits of Armenian experts in UNESCO organized events. And you mentioned, and actually few of speakers today have mentioned cooperation not only between governments but NGOs and other actors, and we heard the appeal for businessmen to engage in more intense cooperation, investments, and so we have interesting statistics, not statistics but facts on cooperation in sports. Because Ministry of Education and Science is also supervising this area and exchanging this field. It's excellent tool of public diplomacy, and so there's a multitude of stakeholders to actually to make our cooperation even more vigorous. Keywords today were similar historical experiences, shared values. We deeply appreciate. Of course, we're facing common challenges. Latvia has this transition experience to share, and Latvia willingly shares this transition experience to democracy, as well as price we paid for, social price. and how to deal with consequences. We are frank, sharing our mistakes and analyzing those, and this is a good way to go further, and lots of possibilities to explore, especially in the field of trade, as colleagues already explored. And thank you so much. We're really happy having you.